So in this video we're going to go through how to change the water pump on the Triumph Spitfire and top the coolant up after draining the radiator. Obviously we need to drain the coolant to remove the water pump. So I've had the engine run for a bit just to get it out the garage, charge the battery. So the first thing we're going to do is disconnect, as always, the battery isolator. Keys are out the ignition. The reason I do that is because we've got an electric fan on the front there, which is on a relay, and it can kick in if it senses too much temperature in here. Also on the original, it was belt driven off that pulley there. I've just removed it. Did find that the original fan, I believe it gives a lot of parasitic drag to the engine, and there is a viscous one which is almost like a clutch. At certain speeds it disconnects, but I just went for a lot. It's got a wide core radiator on there, a larger electric fan, just a single unit that pushes air through the radiator core. It does the job. It's also got a controller by the steering wheel. Well, actually it's in the dashboard at the moment, on the passenger side, that you can control the cut-in temperature. And you can also have it so it's the opposite, so it runs and then it'll cut out at a certain temperature, but that wouldn't really work for this application. So we've got it coming in, I think it's about 82 degrees it clicks in. I don't think it really does. The car it doesn't seem to overheat that bad. I mean, it's got a wide core radiator. It's pretty open, the engine. Normally just comes in at, if you're sitting in traffic or something, you'll hear the fan kick in. So here's all the things we've got. We've got our ethylene glycol, water pump gasket, thermostat cover gasket, and the water pump, which includes the pulley on the front. Antifreeze that we're going to be using, it's a monoethylene glycol based antifreeze and coolant concentrate. And for what we're going to do, it's a 1 part antifreeze to 3 parts water. So we'll get quite a bit out of this because it's a 5 litre bottle. So with this radiator, it doesn't have a petcock on it. So what we do is we just disconnect this bottom hose here, and that's how we'll drain it. We'll also be changing the gasket on the thermostat cover. We'll be testing the gasket as well. You see there's a bit of coolant crystallization there, so it has been leaking. I do believe when I got the car it didn't have a radiator in it because the temperature wouldn't build up, the heaters didn't work. Didn't really want to start pulling the firewall apart to get to the heater core, but just having a quick look around, notice that the temperature gauge didn't build any temperature up, and removing the thermostat cover here, found there was no thermostat in it. Obviously the first thing is to think, why did they take the thermostat out? Was the engine overheating? Is it blocked? Well, there's no evidence of that. The engine runs lovely. Put the thermostat in. It's a low temperature, wanted it open to the lower temperature, and never had any issues. The heater works lovely. But the only problem is I got this, it was like a different material, and it never sealed. So I'm pretty sure I just used some like cork or something to seal it, but it's obviously been weeping. So I've got a new gasket for that. Obviously the water pump down here, it's held on 3 nuts on studs that go into the sort of the water pump housing. Got a belt, we'll check the belt. So the 3 nuts will come off. Hopefully the water pump will come off in one piece. Shouldn't have to push the radiator forward. I think there's enough clearance. Put the new water pump on. There's nothing wrong with this water pump. I just one of those things. I'm just curious as to the condition of that water pump. I'm assuming that's original. It looks it, and then we'll take it from there. So like I mentioned, there's no petcock on this radiator. Disconnect this hose clamp here on the lower radiator hose. Because of the low profile of the car, I've got a large paint tray which I can slide under there to catch most of it. Obviously that doesn't hold that much, so I'm going to put a bucket to put the rest in, and then we'll put it into a 20 litre drum to dispose of. So no real special tools for this job. Got a flat blade screwdriver here. Just get on that hose clamp, wind it all the way back. Straight away there we can see that the coolant started to run. Just figure out where the stream of coolant's going to, and position the tray before we take off any more of the hose. Get under there and have a look. So there we go, I've loosened it a little bit more, and when we wiggle the hose, we can get a bit of coolant flow. I don't want to take it off in one piece because it'll just gush everywhere, so we'll just tease it back. We can let it just trickle out like that for a bit. There's no rush. You can hear the pressure building up, so we'll take the radiator cap off. There we go. You can see the flow of coolant there just changed. It's a lot more steady. It's a good thing to see as well when the coolant is coming out, especially when you get more of it out. You just check the condition. There's a lot of rust building up, get a bit of corrosion in the block. So far it's looking pretty clean. I can't remember when this coolant was changed, but I imagine within the last 5 years. I've done it myself. I made a note somewhere just because I've got new hoses on, so obviously I will have changed the coolant to fit those hoses. So yeah, we'll come back once that's all drained out of the radiator, and we're pretty much above this level here where the hose is. Now I know I said there might be a petcock on the block, but I've searched both sides there and I can't see one. Haven't got any of the manuals with me either to actually check this. I did mention that there was no petcock on the block. There isn't a petcock, but I believe it's this bolt here that gets removed. I might be wrong, but from what I've read online, I believe it's that bolt there. You can't go wrong, even if it's not, just put it back in, but I believe that is a drain for the block itself. It's a bit high up, but according to what I've read on the internet, that is the one that people seem to remove. So that's it there. The hose is fully disconnected from the bottom of the radiator. See, the radiator is empty, and I'm assuming now, because that's off, that the water pump is also empty. The paint tray is quite full. I've not had to empty it. I suppose it is a wide core radiator, but it's not particularly that big compared to the original Triumph Spitfire ones. It is a lot larger. I think they undersized them, to be honest, in the original Spitfires. But yeah, we'll take the tension off the belt now. It's like most vehicles, the accessories, the belt, alternator is driven off a pulley off the crankshaft. This is no exception. On this one, originally you got the alternator crankshaft pulley down there, and then it goes up to the water pump, which also drives the coolant fan. One belt on there. We've got a mounting bolt at the bottom here. We'll take the tension out of that, which is a 13mm spanner, and then you've got the sort of the position up here, which is just another 13mm. So we'll do that now. We just don't have to slacken it fully. That's hand tight, and then up here, which nips the alternator, back that off as well. Normally you can get away with just one spanner, see that, and then we can readjust this, slide it forward, take the tension out. So what I did was I just tapped it forward with a bit of wood as to not damage the case. I mean, to be honest, probably get a bit more, probably take that bolt fully out, slide it a bit further forward, and then it's just a case of teasing the belt off the pulley. Either pulley's easy accessible. I'll show you that now. Just get the blade in there, being careful not to damage any of the alternator parts. You can sort of just flip the belt up and over. Still a bit of tension in that, might be easier on the bottom pulley there actually. A larger diameter. Yeah, what I might do is I don't want to damage anything. I'm going to take the top securing bolt of the alternator out fully, and I'm just going to remove the whole alternator. I think it's just going to be easier instead of trying to work around it. So just the top bolt there, 13mm, just cut it off, and then the bottom one is a 13mm as well. 2 bolts. Just remove both. Just be careful when you do remove it that you do have the harness on the back of the alternator, so don't go pulling it or dropping it. That's the bolt out. I just rested the alternator there, and now we can get the belt straight off. And we'll just have a quick look at the belt. I've got a spare one, but to be honest this one's fairly new. No damage, no wear on it, there's no splits. So I think we'll just put that one straight back on. So now the alternator's off, I think what we'll do now is we'll just take the 2 bolts at the top of the thermostat housing there. So I've already slackened off the hose clamps on this top hose, and again it's 13mm on top of the cover here. Now I can't remember, but I think they're different sizes as in length. This is the right hand one, yeah. Now clearly you can see that. And there we go, there's the thermostat. A bit of corrosion on there. I'll whip that out. I haven't got really anywhere to put the camera really while I'm doing this. I suppose see how much you can see from there. Move cover. Pull the thermostat out. Well, underneath it's looking pretty good. On top, I think it's just a bit of surface tarnish, to be honest. Even inside, it's not looking bad at all. See the you can see the temperature gauge probe there. But yeah, we'll give this a clean. So for the water pump itself, we're going again with a 13mm, and there's three nuts that hold it on. If you can see them, there's one camera in there, there's one there, one at the bottom and one on the other side. And while we're doing it, there's the cows on their morning walk. Normally they're standing right at this fence. Access is a little better on this side, so we'll get on there. Let's say these are just nuts on studs, so we're not taking a bolt out, we're just taking a nut and a spring washer, I think, yeah, off on each one. There seems to be a lot of red gasket, like that sort of liquid gasket stuff, so I don't quite know why. Right, now for the removal, all 3 nuts are off. It should just be a case, I mean, I think it's probably going to be stuck a little bit. Oh no, there you go, just rocking it. We've got 3 spring washers that are going to fall off, but I've got my hand underneath. They fall off. There is clearance, it's coming out. Yeah, that's what it looks like inside. Got the vanes, mounting face there on this side. The 4 holes where the fan was mounted to, and the pulley. Brand new one of them, and can't really get in there, but there's the hole from where it came. I have to clean that face up. I've got a new gasket. I'm not putting that instant gasket stuff on. I don't really like it. That's like a last resort sort of thing. But I've got a proper gasket for it. Same for the thermostat cover. So it's strange because I thought it was just instant gasket, but it looks like there was a gasket on there. So you can see the paper, but also the silicone. So what I'm going to do, we're not going to bother about this because obviously this is going in the bin, but I've got a razor blade here. We'll take that onto the engine face and we'll clean that up as best we can. I don't think you'll be able to see in there, but clean the face up best I can. Doesn't seem to be any damage to the face. I don't know why they've used the red silicone stuff. God knows. Soon find out, I suppose, when we put the new water pump on and gasket. So while we're here cleaning, we'll just go over the top of this with a razor blade as well. Most of the stuff is on the actual cover. Just take it. Just come around to this side here, got the old gasket. Pop that off. Side needs a bit of a clean, but I'll just run around again with the razor blade. As long as we get 2 flat, clean maiden surfaces, that's all that you can really ask for. And the gasket takes up the rest. So you can scrape off all that residue inside of there. So you get as much of it out as we can, because we don't want that going around the block, the radiator and blocking anything. It's more just surface debris, to be honest. I'll give it a rinse under the tap, just to get rid of all the loose things I can't knock out. Just check the material thickness inside. There's no pitting, no corrosion. And the thermostat. I think it is just, I thought it was corrosion, but it's not, it's just tarnish. Even on the other side, it's almost like feels like oil, which is obviously the glycol element. I'll give that a wash. I mean, the way to test these, normally they've got the temperature stamped on them. It's at the bottom there. Yeah, 82 degrees this one opens up. I knew it was around about 80, 85. So 82 this one opens. So it's sitting like that. The heat side's on this side. A spring here. Inside here there's going to be a temperature sensitive material like wax, and as it heats up it expands and opens and lets the coolant flow through. As it cools down, contracts, and the spring pushes the valve shut again. Best case scenario, it fails open. Worst case, it fails shut, car will overheat. I think outboard engines, I think it's one of these things that people can just take them out and they think, oh, that's fine. But you get accelerated where the car doesn't heat up properly, like this car didn't have the heater didn't work, and you start thinking, well, is it the heater core itself? Is that blocked? Is there something wrong with it? Yeah, it just turns out it was this. I mean, for the Spitfire, I think for all Triumphs, you can get different versions. You can get hot climates, cool climate. I think this is the standard, the 82. So I'll take these inside, I'll give them a wash, and then we'll get back to refitting them all. Right, so I've just given the thermostat and the thermostat cover a wash, and I think they've come out really well, really clean. So we'll drop these back in with a brand new gasket and re-secure it. We've got a gasket there, just test the fit. I don't think there's any orientation, it looks good. So we'll drop the thermostat in, sits nice and snug. The gasket on top there. We've got the housing which sits on top of there, and then we've got the two bolts, making sure that we pass through the gasket on both sides. Start them off by hand, just in case of cross-threading, and then we'll nip them down with a 13mm spanner. So yep, 13mm socket here. Just nip it down both sides. Don't have to go mad. Just making sure it's evenly nipped up. So here's the old one, here's the new one. Just take it out of the bag. Just compare them. Pretty much the same. And I've got a new gasket as well. Again, I don't know if there's an orientation for the gasket. Just match the holes up here. Rotate it into the 3 positions. And it looks fine. The gasket can go any direction. One of the things I wanted to make clear with the water pump is that although it will go on in any orientation, you do have, if you can see it here, just where it mounts, there's a recess just in there. It's a weep port. Now that one there is in line with the hole here. Now that goes in the 6 o'clock position, and that just ensures that if the seals do start leaking between the water pump and the pulley there, it'll indicate by weeping out of that slot there. I mean, in theory it could probably go in any orientation, but the best is because it drains the case. So put that in the 6 o'clock position. What we'll do is we'll just put the gasket on first over the 3 studs. And because these are studs, it's pretty easy. We can just offer it up, line it in there, hit it onto the first three, and there we go. Easier with the studs because you can just put the water pump onto the studs. The ones with the like a bolt, they're a bit more difficult. You can get the first one in and the second one doesn't line up. That's that. And then it's just a case of putting the 3 spring washers and 3 nuts back on, and that'll be the water pump refit to the vehicle. So I've just put the washers, 3 nuts on, and again take the 13mm spanner on the ratchet end and we'll just nip them all up evenly. Now it's fitted, the nuts are torqued down. Good idea just to give a spin by hand, just to make sure that nothing's bound up. You're just listening for noises and the feel. As long as it can do a 360, there's no rough spots, everything's smooth the whole way around, you know it's going in square. So there we go, that's the bottom bolt in there, the bush in there, and then it rolls up, makes contact with the tension guide there. You fit your tension and drop that. This bolt here, which I've put back in already, through that hole, and that gives you correct tension on your belt. So see if I can get the belt on with one hand. So it's going over the top of the water pump, around the bottom down there, I don't know if you can see it, around the crank pulley, and then we can get it up because the alternator is pushed right forward. You can just hook it just over. There we go. Run my hand around the bottom, it's on. Round the back of the pulley, it's on. As you can see, the slack here at the longest point, massive. When we pull the alternator back, we take that tension out, and when we get to the correct tension, we put the bolt through there and nip it up nice and tight, and that puts the tension on, so we don't get belt squeak, don't get smoke when the load comes on. Drives the water pump and drives the alternator, and originally would have driven the fan as well, but we've got away with that. So there we go, that's the alternator tensioned. There's a bit of tension in there. Top one done, bottom one done on that side as well, 13mm. We'll put the top hose back in now, and then it'll be a case of mixing some coolant up and putting the coolant in. What I was able to do there, I was able to just move this tube enough just to be able to see down inside and get it round onto the top, and then it's just a case of just teasing this silicone hose back over. There we go, and then we can draw it back up on to there, ensuring that that's in far enough. Orientate the hose clamps correctly, and we'll nip them up, and that's it on. Here we are, the bottom hose. Just a case of orientating that and pushing it on. Line the hose clamp up nicely, and then we'll nip that up as well. So I've mixed up some coolant in here. I'm going to put it into the radiator. I put, because it's not just ratios, I put, as long as you use the same measuring device, I'd put 2, I don't know what it was, some sort of jug, didn't have any markings on it, 2 jugs of coolant and 6 of the equivalent of fresh water. Now I've given it a mix, put the coolant in first, then the water, give it a mix, and we'll pour it in. If we need more, we can mix the same ratio again. So we're just going to pour it in nice and slowly. Look for leaks as well at the same time. Pour it in slowly so it gives the radiator a chance to, all the air lines, a chance to evacuate all the air. If you pour it in one big glump, you might get an airlock in it somewhere, but we'll run the engine with the heater on hot to get it through the system and allow the thermostat to open. So it's just coming to the top there of the radiator. Take that right up to the neck. There you go, you can see the blue liquid literally there. And what we'll do now, just have a quick check over, quick listening for drips, you know, looking for drips as well. I can't see any. We only took sort of 2 hoses off really, and the water pump and that. We'll give the engine a run with the pressure cap off. Let's say with the heater core on hot. Hopefully that'll go through the system and the level should drop. In the car now, I've put the battery isolator on. I've got the keys into the ignition here. It's a nice warm day. I'll put a bit of choke on. Hopefully it starts first turn of the key. It probably won't, but here we go. No, wants to. A bit more choke on. There we go. Running there nicely. As always, good old pressure. See if we can get away with the choke off, because it was running just before. Yep. Come out. Oh, look. Oh, a bit of a leak on the top there. Turn the engine off. We'll have a look at that. So I don't know if that's the mate and face on that cover or whether it was the hose. I think what we'll have to do is I'll have to run it again and just make doubly sure. Looked like it was, first glance it looked like it was out of here. Maybe the hose. Let's just quickly run that again, just check. Just fired the engine up again. It is coming out the top cap. So we'll just give it a nip. I mean, it's pretty tight already, but has that arrested it? No, it's still weeping out of there, so most likely I'll have to take that back off, and maybe put some silicone on there. I mean, that's maybe why it was, maybe it's a defective base. So if you recall at the end of the last video, the thermostat cover was leaking. So I've ordered a new gasket and some RTV silicon. There was silicon on the last gasket, which is now why it was probably on, because it's either the thermostat cover is warped or the water pump housing's warped. I'm not going to change either. I'm going to put some silicon on. If it still leaks after that, then I'll check the faces, but it'll probably mean, I mean, the cheapest one is to change the cover, but I think we'll get away with just putting some silicone on, because that's what was on there. So we'll remove that. Got the gasket there. I'll take that out. I think there's another one in there. I did double stack them. Remove that. We'll clean the faces up, and I've got a brand new one. I'll put silicone on both sides. I'll dry it off. We'll put it back on, let it cure for a bit, and then we'll give it a run. And hopefully that'll be it. So this is what I'm going to use. The Manol 9915 RTV Blue Adhesive Sealant. Did a bit of research, and apparently this is alright for water pumps, thermostat gaskets, cars, sumps, that sort of thing. So we'll put it on. It says surface drying time 10 minutes. So it should be good, 10 minutes. So I've got silicone on one side of that. We'll just lay it as clean as we can on there in one go. The one thing I do like about this silicone is it comes with a little winding key, so you can wind it for easy application. You've got a stepped nozzle applicator there. Just cut it with a razor blade, Stanley blade. I've got it on the fine point. Just wind it as you go and get the most use out of it. The good thing to do on any bolts that are sort of a blind hole where they're bottoming out, if you get liquid in there, because you don't want to put a bolt in because you'll end up just jacking the bolt in and you'll crack the metal. Just get a bit of toilet roll, absorbent paper, and just twizzle it as tight as you can, narrow, and just dip it into the hole, and you should be able to get all the liquid out. Better yet, a bit of compressed air, just blow the liquid out. As you can see there, I put the silicone on the top side of the gasket as well. Put the thermostat cover on now and I'll bolt it down. So they're both nipped down and you've got a good splurge of blue silicone sealant. I'll give that a wipe, and it says cured in 10 minutes, but probably give it longer. I mean, it's a lovely warm day, but I don't want to keep taking it on and off, so we'll give it 15-20 minutes. So just fired the car up there, and as you can see, we haven't got one drip of water, which is exactly what I wanted to see there. Again, water pump, that's dry. What we'll do now is we'll run the car up to temperature. Also going to get a bit of steam here from all the old coolant burning off. And then we'll top up the coolant as necessary. Coolant in there. I'll leave the reservoir cap off for now. Put the heater quarter pot so it's circulated through the car. Hopefully that's it. Car comes up to temperature, I'll also take the choke off. And that'll be it for a water pump. As you can see, that rubber silicone is all hardened now. Feel the pipes there for a bit of temperature. See still smoking off there. A bit of steam, you can see that. Steam, it smells sweet, which is the glycol. I'm quite happy with that.